Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're playing Horde, where white starts with 36 pawns and fights black's regular army. White wins by checkmating black's king, and black wins by capturing all of white's pawns. My goal is to win one game. Let's get started with game number 1. Alright, game number 1, we do get the black pieces, and generally speaking, I have a strategy for playing with the white pieces, which is to push a pawn and then fill the gap, fill the gap, fill the gap, before choosing another pawn to push. With the black pieces, not so much. The only thing I can think of is trying to instigate and hoping that white takes instead of focusing on reinforcing their position, which they do in fact do. So we'll go ahead and take back. And the reason I like this is because it starts to open up white's position. Hopefully we can get holes forming in their structure, and eventually we can take advantage of it. Let's go ahead and take back. I think with the pawn makes the most sense. So we'll see if they start reinforcing their position or if they continue to poke and prod, which they do. I grab a free pawn here in this exchange. We'll go ahead and take back with, I guess the knight is probably fine. And again, as the position starts to open up, you can see the pieces start to intersect. That's an awful example because they literally just moved that pawn out of the way. But as my pieces start to intersect and open up, I can start to target white's position instead of just, defending myself. I do think here I just have to move the knight back. But we've already got some of that pressure off of our position. You do start this game as black, basically feeling, and at least I feel, very claustrophobic with all of those pawns just in your face. But when these trades start to happen, it starts to seem a lot less intimidating. Okay, pawn to f5 is just a free pawn. Pawn to g4 does force me to go back. And I will say, having played this variant before, white really doesn't have a lot of wiggle room to keep their advantage. So if you start dropping pawns, especially multiple pawns, the game is for the most part down the drain at that point, unfortunately. We'll continue to poke and prod because the position just opens up to the point where black has no pressure on their position anymore. All they have is a bunch of lines of sight into the white's pawn structure, which makes it very easy to target, anything and everything. I'll go ahead and move back. But you can see there's just no pressure on the position anymore. So at this point, it's more so a matter of simplifying and getting all of white's pawns actually off the board. So we'll go ahead and speed run that. You can see we'll just pick off pawns as they drop. And I'll see you guys when I've made it mostly through all of these pawns. Okay, I haven't made it through most of the pawns, but something critical just happened, which is that the opponent has allowed me to make it to the back rank. If you intend on playing this variant, if your opponent makes it to the back rank, it's basically a race to see if white can checkmate you before you capture all of their pieces from behind. Okay, I think I should probably take this with the rook. Obviously in this game, the opponent doesn't have an attack set up to begin that race, but that's generally what happens. Otherwise, black just comes in and scoops up all these pawns from behind. Oh no! Oh my goodness, I stalemated the opponent! Oh my goodness, they had the pawn on d4, and I just pre-moved queen to d6 so I'd be able to take the pawn on the next turn, and I didn't realize that they wouldn't have anywhere to play. Well, shout out my opponent. With that, we don't win game number 1. Oh, that's so frustrating. Let's go to move on to game number 2. Alright, game number 2, we get the black pieces this time again. We do start with pawn to d5, and I will start with my usual instigation. Chaco says, "Hi IWC, glad you're back to making videos." Aw, thank you so much. Good luck. Alright, we get pawn to d4. Oh, wait a minute. If they're a viewer, then they know at least how I would play this as white. They do wish us luck as well, and I think I'm going to need it because they are defending their pawns. So this is another concept that I sort of talked about. Again, I'm not an expert in this variant, but it's just been my experience that when black puts tension on any one of your given pawns, you want to make sure you have at least 2 pawns, or I guess exactly 2 pawns, always defending it. Just makes your structure a lot stronger. And you can see as soon as I played d6, we got d4 defending it. So I might be in trouble. Let's play c6. Since we've already started to sort of play on the queen side, I might as well keep up that trend and try to create a little bit of a hole on that side of the board. We'll take on b5. Oh goodness. I also talk about taking towards the center a lot. I'm probably giving myself too much credit here, but I'm at least scared of the fact that the opponent is playing so many, in my opinion, accurate moves. I'm going to play b6 and let's do a6 to follow. Just create a lot of tension on the board. If we get a4, I might be cooked here. Because again, they'd be applying that principle of always having two defenders on every pawn, which is not good news for me. And it really does work out because here a4, even if I do take, they can take back with the a pawn, and the rook can only see as far as the second rank, which is ultimately defended. Oh, we get c6 instead. I mean, that might be fine too, but I'm going to go ahead and take. And now that we have this sort of advanced pawn structure, I actually have somewhere to target. So now I can play e6. They do defend again, but I'm trying to see if there's any way I can take advantage of the fact that they've now extended themselves on the queen side instead of holding the line. I think knight to e7 here is called for, because I'm more than happy to sack the knight for 2 pawns on d5 in order to make their entire center crumble. We do get pawn to f6, so if I take now, they would not take back. They would probably just take my knight. I take with bishop, then they just take back, and I haven't accomplished anything. What if I sack the knight straight away? They could close up the position, but I think I'm actually okay with that. I'm gonna go ahead and sack the knight. I'm guaranteed to get 2 pawns for it anyways, and hopefully I can start breaking down their center. They take on g7, which I'm totally happy with. Puts the bishop on the long diagonal. They do take back. If they take here, I think it's pretty much game over. But no, we get h6 instead. I'm going to slide back because I have no other choice. The reason that I say if they take here, it's pretty much game over, which they didn't, so shout out. It's because I can take back with the queen, and then b5 and c6 are guaranteed to crumble. a4 isn't possible because the rook holds down that square. We do get pawn to c5, I will take. b5 is very much a point of interest. If I can get to b5, c6 is basically guaranteed to fall. All right, we get the recapture by the d pawn. Now what to do? Okay, let's go queen to c7. Short little move targeting c6. Maybe I'll just sacrifice another knight for another 2 pawns. The problem is that white has so many pawns that if you try to do that ratio of a piece for 2 pawns until you have no pieces left, you will run out of pieces before white does. So I have to be really careful about how I decide to sacrifice pieces for pawns. But I think this is worthwhile, right? It gets a lot of pressure off my position. Unless I can just get b5 outright. But the problem is that now that d5 pawn isn't there anymore. They just have like c4 and I guess d3, and they'll have this b5 pawn rooted all the way back on f1, which is just, I think, impossible to uproot. So we'll go ahead and sack the knight. We'll take back on c6. And hopefully the fact that I've cleared out the center for the most part will work heavily in my favor, right? Because they still have the outskirts, but I'm sort of starting to work my way into the position in the center. Play f6, target g5. Oh, wow, I can't believe I just didn't take on d4. It's funny because white has to be very careful not to give up pawns because it could lose a lot of advantage. Black also has to be careful to make sure they see all of the free pawns because those opportunities might not come around again. So I definitely got to keep my eyes peeled for free pawns. All right, they do in fact take. Okay, I'll take on h6 because that was like the whole point of playing that, and then I'll move back. d4 is still on the board, but I have a funny feeling they're about to defend it. Yep, there goes e3. Let's try and target the structure. And you can see they have so many pawns on dark squares that I think it's going to be difficult for them to operate on any of the light squares. So in a weird way, they're kind of losing a grip on the position because even my king could comfortably move through these light squares. And if they ever try to advance into it, they risk weakening other squares. In fact, I'm going to play a little flashy move here, bishop to h3. It doesn't actually work because I can't take. But if they do take, then I get to h1, and I'm willing to bet I can take all their pawns before anything bad happens to me. But they smack me right back with pawn to f3. All right, queen's going to have to go back. If they play g4, I'll sack the bishop. If they just take, then I'll take with the queen. Looking at f1, which the only way to defend is to play g2, and then h2 drops anyways. If they do none of that, they can literally just leave this pawn here. Again, that principle we talked about in the beginning, that pawn is defended twice. It's totally fine. And they do in fact realize that, but I think inadvertently drop that pawn on a3. All right, we get pawn to c4. Let's get the bishop back to home base. Pawn in our face. Let's move the queen. Let's just move her all the way back to c8, I think. Pawn to e4. I mean, it's still a little scary. It's not completely won yet. Pawn to d4, and we're both getting pretty low on time here. Okay, let's do this. Both down under 20 seconds now. Queen to b8, sneaky little attack. Pawn comes forward, which drops b1, but the king is, I don't know, there's a lot of pawns coming in just a second. All right, I'll go ahead and take. I don't care if they promote, I'll just take back. And I'm more than happy to sack the bishop, take that free pawn. And I just don't think that they're in time here. Now there's nobody that can uproot my queen, so this entire structure is blocked. This is 3-2, by the way. 3 minutes with 2 seconds of increment. All right, pawn to b5, and I think I can just take what is rightfully mine. Takes, takes, takes. We'll sack on c6, absolutely no issue. Pawn to e5, it's a little bit sketchy. I don't love what's going on, but I think I'm still in time. There comes the other pawn. If they ever push f6, I take g7, takes. Ooh, I don't know if I'm in time there. That's a problem. Oh, I'm just gonna take, I have 5 seconds, holy cow. Oh my goodness, don't flag, don't flag, don't flag. Okay, we'll sack. Oh my goodness, I'm not in time. Oh, no, I'm not in time. Oh, I'm not in time. Oh goodness. Okay, I'm just gonna take. Panicked. I just panicked, I'm gonna be honest. If they take with promotion, then I'm fine. But they don't, so I might be cooked here. Because now it's 5 pawns versus a rook, which might actually be totally reasonable for them to try and hold down. In fact, they're still playing for a win. They didn't even want to trade queens there. Actually, I guess trading queens there would have been much better for me. So all I have to do is not lose this rook to the queen, and I'll be okay. There goes another check. Let's go here. Slide the king. I really don't know what to do here. Kind of just waiting. Okay, I'll take. I'll move here. I'm gonna try and connect my rook and my queen. I think that's a smart safety measure to take, just to make sure I can never get checked and lose one or the other. All right, we'll move back. Sure, we'll move up. Okay, slide the rook over. The time situation is quite an issue here, but I might be okay. Okay, let's go back again, target g5. Oh, they're really not going to make this easy for me. The time trouble is huge here. Oh no! Oh gosh, there's nothing I can do here but lose my queen. Oh, well played by this opponent. Yeah, g6 loses me the queen. Oh, very well played. That's resignable. Wow, GG's. Super good game. Great game. Well played by the opponent. With that, we lose game number 2. We still don't have a single victory under our belt. Let's go to move on to game number 3. All right, holy cow, game number 3, we do get the white pieces, and we're paired up with an 1800 rated player, so well over 100 points higher than I am in this variant. We do get a5, which I will ignore, and I'm going to try and play by the principles that I feel like have benefited me in the past. We do get g6, so I'll just keep pushing. For the most part, I try and just ignore tension, right? Because I want them to feel the pressure of my 36 pawns, not for them to feel like they can get away with trading them off, basically. We do get d6, maybe a little risky. Oh, I can't push this because then they look at f5. Ooh, interesting. Okay, then what to do? Because then I'm kind of zugzwanged as far as my own principles go. Maybe I just push c6. Let's give that a try. They do take. Let's take back towards the center, and then I can play b5. Cool, we'll take back towards the center. b5 still available. They take, we'll take towards the center. Take towards the center again. And then we get e6, which does force me to trade something or other. Unless I can maybe just play g4. That might actually be okay. Okay, let's go to g4. A lot of gaps here that I'd like to fill very soon. But for the meantime, I think this is okay. All right, we'll take towards the center again. g4 is possible. Ooh, pawn to f6, and h4 is not possible. So I think I'm forced to take. Maybe I'll just push g6, though. Again, I really want to keep the pressure on them in this position. Rook comes down. What is that threatening? This? Should I be scared of that? Maybe. Anyways, let's push b5. I think they're just trying to bait me into moving this pawn so they can take on h3. All right, queen to e7. Now, question is, do I continue this slow and steady advance, or do I try and break through somehow? The thing is, I don't see where I would even break through. Yeah, let's just play a3. Let's stick to the basics for now. Knight comes over. Yeah, they're looking to sack here. I don't think I have a choice but to play g4 and try to hold this down. They take. Yep, that's a problem. What if I go b4 and then try to bum rush them in the center? I think that might be my only hope here, because otherwise they're just going to continue to slowly work their way into my position. So let's see, a2 first. If they take, I can just take back. That's not an issue. Okay, we'll play a2 first and just see what they're intending to play. But I have to admit that b4, sacking this pawn, b3, sacking this pawn, and then c5 looks really amusing. Okay, queen g7 I think is a sort of nothing burger move. I don't think that does anything specific. Okay, the thing is, eventually I will also just run out of random moves that I can play, so I think I'm just going to go for it. We'll start with b4. We'll continue with b3. Oh, they might just be lining up the sacrifice. We'll continue with c5. If they try to get in on the king side, I think it's perfect that I'm trying to break through on the queen side. Right, that's exactly what they're doing. I will take a free rook. They do take back. Okay, so their strongest piece is now behind my pawns, which means eventually these pawns will all fall if I do nothing. So I need an attack that's actually going to break through their side of the board. Question is, what does that attack actually look like? Let's see, e5 looks really interesting. b6 is extremely interesting, but I think it needs a little more support, and I do have some tempo before they're actually on my case. So let's continue pushing on the queen side as far away from their queen as possible, so that by the time they actually get to my pieces, I might have actually gotten the chance to promote. They do take, we'll continue taking towards the center. Ooh, they take on a3. There's gotta be something here. Maybe c7? Yeah, c7, c6, b7 I think makes sense. Knight to a6, c6 to follow or d6 to follow? No, c6 to follow b7, and then we try to force promotion. Right, weirdly enough, somehow the knight stops the rook from coming back. Oh, they just sack the knight. Ooh, that makes sense. b7? How do you stop promotion after b7? Takes, the rook can't come back. Oh, it could just sack the rook because the knight protects it. Oh, that's really interesting. I wonder if that's exactly what they're gonna play. Shout out if that's what they play. That's a crazy find. So then I'd be forced to play e5. Oh no, knight to a6 just straight up stops it. Ooh, okay, b5, and then I'm hoping to take, but the knight just goes back to b8. Ooh, very nice. All right, let's try over here. Let's try our luck on the other side of the board, see if anything changes. We have gotten rid of a lot of their pieces, so their king is objectively quite weak here. Now it's just up to me to actually make something of that. They do sack. We do have another promotion idea. Queen takes. Now the question is how to follow through on this fast enough. I think g7 is called for. They do sack. Oh, and the king catches it. Ooh, interesting, interesting. Oh, am I just really not in time? That's crazy. Okay, let's do this and then try to put a whole bunch of pawns on the dark squares, like this, since we're chained all the way back on c1. Give them a little cheeky check. Start pushing the c pawn, and again, I'm trying to make them go all the way to the depths of my position, and hopefully give me enough time to push past. There goes the rook. c5 drops d5, which I'm not super happy about. Okay, then let's go a4. I'm gonna make them decide between b7 and allowing this pawn to advance. And they do allow the a pawn to advance. Okay, queen goes down, which I think is a good sign. They do sack, we'll take back. And I think this is where we just kind of go for it. Nice, c5. The time trouble is insane as well. Okay, obviously we push and try to promote. Rook has to come back and stop us. We'll push another pawn and try to continue to force our way through. Okay, now, I guess we just push again and force the promotion. Nice. Okay, so we do manage to get a queen on the board, and I think we're winning now. But we do still have to simplify this. And we don't have a lot of time to do it. The cool thing is I can't lose. I don't have a king that I have to defend. Black does have a king that they have to defend. And I think they dropped the queen accidentally there. Nice little skewer to end the game. And somehow the only game I managed to win is against the highest rated opponent. But with that, we do win our game. If you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Let me know down below if you guys have any differing opinions on how I approach this game. I'd be very curious to know if you agree with the general strategies that I follow or if your experience has been different than my own. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.